Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we've got a beer from a Scottish brewery I've never tried anything from before. These guys are very new. So we're going to go to Cumbernauld today and we're doing my first review from Town Brewing. So we're going to have a taste of the North East Coast IPA, which is a New England style IPA as far as I know, and it comes in at 7% ABV. So it should be a really quite nice one this. I'm really looking forward to this, and it has all the hops and malts and things on the side as well. So looking forward to this. As I always say, it is cool to come across new Scottish breweries who are doing various different things. So I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Town Brewing. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers. Of course, there's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and look for beers based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support you give the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Town Brewing then. So Town Brewing are based in Cumbernauld near Glasgow. I always drive past it actually when I go into Glasgow. But the company was founded back in 2016 by James Morton, Owen Sheerans and Richard O'Brien. So Owen has brewed for the longest out of the three, and he has a background in biomedical science. He actually taught James to homebrew, but James is also an NHS doctor and he took part in the Great British Bake Off, and from what I understand he is actually a published author. I think he published a book on baking as well. But after a while he participated in a homebrewing competition held by the Institute of Brewing and Distilling, and he won this, and the winning beer actually became Stuart Brewing's Skeleton Blues. You will see me review that beer in a couple of videos time because I've got a can in the fridge. I think it was an American wheat beer, which should be quite interesting. But Rich actually has a background in sales, and apparently he brewed all of the beer that he served at his wedding, and he's also won prizes from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling competitions as well. But after their successes, they sought out a premises and they settled on Cumbernauld because it was one of the cheapest areas for them to go to, and they actually built a lot of their brewery equipment themselves. It said on their website that that a lot of their brewing was built out of old jam storage tanks, and they used old olive oil pots as well. But each batch they produce around 500 litres of beer, so at the moment they are a fairly small operation. So I guess to review one of their beers in this very early stage is quite an interesting thing. And from what I understand, I think they've got about 5 or 6 different beers that have been bottled so far, and there's a few others that have gone to keg and stuff like this as well. But as I always say, it is cool to try new things from new breweries, and this was one that was recommended to me by Sam at Hippo Beer. She was saying that I should have a go at these beers because they're pretty good. So her recommendations have been good so far, and I'm sure this one will be pretty interesting as well. So yeah, that's all you need to know about the brewery just now. You can check out the link to their website and stuff in the description below. From there you can get all their social media, and as I always say, it is cool to try beers from new places. So yeah, should be an interesting one this. I'll just have a little quick look at the artwork. There you can see it's quite simply done. From what I remember, all of the beers that they do seem to have a fairly similar style of artwork to this, just a different colour scheme of course. There you can see the Town Brewing symbol here, which is quite nice. It looks like it's a wee, I don't know if it's meant to be like a kind of malt grain or a malt flour or something like that. Plain bottle cap on this one. It tells you the stats of this beer on the side. So this one is 7% ABV. It uses a London ESB yeast and also USO5 as well, which is quite interesting. But the malt base in this one is extra pale Maris Otter, crystal, wheat, rye and oats. So I guess when it has the oats in it, it will be more of a kind of New England style IPA, hazy IPA. The hops in this one are Warrior, Columbus, Centennial, Chinook, Mosaic and Amarillo. So yeah, it should be a really quite interesting one this. Mainly US, I think all of them are US hops actually. The only one I wouldn't be sure of is Warrior, but because I think there are a few different countries do that one. But yeah, it should be really interesting, and we'll get it out and into the glass. So yeah, wee bit of a smoky opening, and we'll get it out then. Oh, it's actually not as hazy as I was expecting. It's more of a kind of clear IPA this, but we'll see. Once you put the sediment in, there you are. You can see it's a nice sort of hazy beer, this one. So it's quite dark in colour actually compared to some of the other beers. I'm not sure, as I say, when it has the name North East Coast, I would have thought it was meant to be a New England style IPA by the name. But we'll see how we get on. Of course, it doesn't matter. I mean, the main thing is whether it tastes good. You can talk about styles all day and style definitions, but that's not the main thing. You want the beer to taste good first and foremost. But if I hold this beer up to the light, it's actually a very dark, almost coppery orange colour, sort of dark. Not quite blood orange, it's a little bit more hazy than that, but definitely if I put my fingers in front of the glass, you can see. Not sure how well you're seeing the colour of this one, but it is really quite a dark IPA. Maybe I need to put a little light over here that I can shine through the beer and just let you see the colours properly. I'm getting used to filming in this room, of course, but there's a solid finger of a frothy, kind of slightly white, creamy coloured head on this one. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there, but it looks kind of what you'd expect for the IPA, but a little bit darker than some of the other ones I've seen, and there's a nice kind of juicy tropical fruit note to this. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on. That smells really quite nice, actually. So with this one, you can smell a little bit of the grapefruit just underpinning this beer. And that'll be, you know, the Centennial and the Cascade, and I think even the Chinook will give you some of that as well. Oh, it's Columbus that's in this one, actually, sorry, not Cascade. I'm just seeing the bottle there, but there's definitely a little bit of orange, and that'll be the Amarillo and the Mosaic that are giving you that. The Mosaic tends to give you a little bit of a kind of lighter tangerine orange. The Amarillo tends to be a little bit juicier and kind of richer, a bit more stronger citrusy, if that makes sense. But yeah, grapefruits, oranges. Interestingly as well, there's a little bit of an almost peachy and apricot-y note coming out of this. It's definitely got a little bit of that kind of juicy, kind of tropical fruit complexity. I mean, Mosaic is a newer hop than the other ones that are in there, and it's always tangerine and quite complex. But it's got that big kind of floral aromaticity. It's quite spicy and floral, I would say. But it's not the most. This beer, just by the aroma, it doesn't smell like it's the most bitter beer. The hops aren't jumping out at you as much as some of them do. But it's got a nice base to it. You can smell a little bit of that kind of bready character in there. It's got a little bit of a biscuity note to it as well. And you can smell some of that wheaty, kind of oaty smoothness that you expect from these big hazy IPAs that are coming out these days. But it's got a really nice, it's a really nice aroma to this one. It smells very fresh and very kind of juicy. And it does kind of look the part for one of these sort of New England IPAs, but a little bit darker, like I said. But as I always say, take a little bit of time and mull over the aroma of the beer before you actually have a go at it. That's always half the experience when it comes to things like whiskey, sake and craft beer. But I'm quite excited to try this one now, so let's get stuck into it then. So this one is the North East Coast IPA, as far as I understand a sort of New England hazy IPA style from out of Town Brewing, based in Cumbernauld near Glasgow here in Scotland. My very first try one of their beers, so let's hope it's a good one. Slàinte. That's pretty interesting, actually. The first thing you're going to notice about this beer is how smooth it is. And for a hazy IPA, there's a little bit more complexity to this in the malt base than some of the other ones I've come across. Usually in this style, when I've tried the likes of Stigberg, it's the Amazing Haze, the GBG Beer Week. I've tried one or two from other breweries like Ale Farm and things over in Denmark and Sweden where I normally live. But this one's interesting because it's just got a little bit more biscuit. It's got a little bit of biscuity and sort of grainy character in the malt base, as well as that sort of wheaty, oaty smoothness. Yeah, the malt base in this. There's a lot going on in the malt base in this. The first thing you're going to notice about this beer is just how smooth it is. So pay attention to the malt base in the middle of your palate. So you can feel this kind of bready character just blank at the middle of your tongue. It's more of a kind of brown bready character actually, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of smoothness. You can definitely pick up a little bit of that wheaty kind of that wheaty and oaty smoothness in there, but there's a good bit of cereally kind of dryness, that kind of grainy flavour just pushing its way through. There is a little bit of dryness to the malt base in there, and I can get just a wee bit of an almost biscuity sweetness to it. But yeah, it's an interesting beer, this one. It actually says on here, yeah, they've added rye to it, so that'll be what this kind of cereally character's coming. It didn't strike me distinctly as rye coming out of this one. it was just, it felt more like a kind of cereally sort of thing. So that's quite an interesting thing actually, to brew one of these New England style IPAs with a bit of rye in it. It works out quite interestingly, and this is a new flavour combination for me, even after like 1,000 odd videos. This one is a new kind of flavour combination in the malt base. But it's a good beer. But like I say, it doesn't necessarily fit into what you would expect in one of these New England style IPAs, and it's just the complexity in the malt base that sets it apart a little bit. But it's really interesting. I guess the yeast, it says they used a London extra special bitter yeast in this one as well, and that's probably what's given it some of these flavours as well, because the yeast can have a kind of a quite profound effect on the flavour of your beer, of course. So I think that's probably a fair assessment of it. The malt base in this one really is a little bit more of a bitter malt base. It does taste a little bit more like an English bitter than a New England IPA, in my opinion at least. So, I mean, it does have a little bit of the sort of wheaty and oaty smoothness that you'd expect, but really that malt base is more, it really is more like the English special bitters and stuff like that. It's really unusual, but it does work actually. So, in terms of the hoppy side of this beer, it's an interesting thing. Again, in the back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward, you start to feel a little bit of that kind of spicy floral aromaticity that you're going to expect from all these hops. So there is a little bit of pine resin in there as well, which I guess is coming from the Chinook. The Chinook always gives you that really kind of sharp piney resin flavour. As you go round the front curve of your palate, it's a little bit lighter and grass, and then of course all these nice fruity esters come out just behind the front curve of your tongue. You'll feel that little oily bubble where you get these nice fruity notes out of the beer, and there's definitely grapefruit underpinning this one. You're going to get grapefruit from 3 or 4 of the hops in this beer. You do, as the flavour progresses, you start to get a little bit more complexity to it. There's a wee bit of a sort of peachy apricot thing. You've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this beer. There is a little bit of a peachy apricot kind of character in there. But at the same time, there's a little bit of orange earlier on as well. You can get a little bit of that tangerine note from the mosaic as you go further on in this beer, but it's a richer kind of orange note that's mixing with the grapefruit. The grapefruit's kind of underpinning everything, and then the other things are sort of coming in and building on top of it. But it's a really interesting beer, this one. It reminds me actually of the Bedero Bitter that I reviewed for you, Sweden's very first craft beer. I reviewed that for you just before I came home for a wee while. And that was one that it was an English style bitter that was brewed with some of the American hops. This beer actually reminds me quite a little bit like that. I think in terms of the New England style of IPA, which was what I was expecting going by the name of this beer, I was expecting this one to be more like the likes of Stigberry, It's Amazing Haze or something like that, but it really reminds me more, this beer is more like an English style bitter than it is an IPA in my opinion. It's more like an English style bitter that's been hopped with some of these big American hops. So in that regard, it works out quite nicely, and it's something that would be interesting to experiment with a little bit more. But as for a New England IPA, for me, it doesn't really strike that note. But the main point is whether or not it's a good beer, and it certainly comes across as if it's pretty well made. So if it sounds like it ticks the boxes for you, I would recommend that you try it. It is more like a kind of English style bitter, but with the sort of IPA kind of hop, the sort of IPA hopped sort of thing going on with it. So it's probably an ESB IPA hybrid. I think that's a good way to kind of sum up this beer. So I think if you like a sort of nice English style bitter malt base, I think you're going to enjoy this. But if you like the American hops, you're going to enjoy it as well. So, and if you like the combination, then you know that's nirvana for you. But it's a really quite interesting beer, this one, and it does make me curious to try some of their other things as well. So I need to try maybe one of their kind of straight up West Coast IPAs or something like that. And I think they did have a darker beer as well. So I will make an effort to review a few more of these for you over the next little while. But I have to say, they've done a good job with this one. On the basis of this beer, you can tell they are capable of making some really quite good beers there. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say that it's mid-bodied. The carbonation on this is very, very smooth. It does have that typical mouthfeel that you expect of the New England IPAs, right enough. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of real ale mouthfeel to it as well. It's got a little bit of a creamy mouthfeel, but at the same time it's a little bit oily. There's a little bit of bitterness from the hops, but it's not really that high in IBUs, I would say. The malt base has a little bit of smoothness and a little bit of sweetness to it, but the grainy kind of cereal character there gives it just a little bit of bitterness. but not too much of that. So much the lingering flavours and the aftertaste for me in this one. It's that cereally kind of character that I was talking about, and some of that kind of floral, the floral aromaticity and piney resins, they're lingering there as well, and a little bit of the grapefruit and some of the kind of more, the slightly lighter complexities that you'd expect from the tropical fruit as well. But overall, it's quite an interesting beer, this one. I think it's fair to sum this one up as like a sort of English style bitter New England IPA hybrid. So if that sounds like it ticks the boxes for you, I'm sure you will enjoy this one. But this is a brewery that's come highly recommended, so I do need to make sure I review a few more of their beers over the next little while. But it was a really interesting one to try, and like I always say, it is cool to try beers from new breweries in Scotland, and if there are breweries popping up that can do these kind of level of beers, then that's always an encouraging thing for Scottish craft beer. So yeah, if this one sounds like it's ticked your boxes, make sure you check out Town Brewing. I'm not sure how widely available their bottles are yet. I know they're available at places like Valhalla Goat and Hippo Beers and things like that in Glasgow. They probably will be available over in Edinburgh, to be honest, as well. I'm not sure about further afield like Inverness and Aberdeen and Dundee and stuff like that, but I'm sure in the next little while they will start to build their capacity and you'll see more of them. But this beer nonetheless is quite interesting. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from this brewery as well, and I will see if I can review a few more of them over the next little while. But thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Check out all my usual social media, but most importantly, support your local craft breweries and have a go at some of these out of town brewing beers from Cumbernauld. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Cheers.